Today, we're diving into a medieval guide to salvation, a lost manuscript that's just packed with these incredible allegories about the journey of the soul. And what's wild is how its ancient lessons on life, temptation, purpose, they feel like they could have been written for us, right now.
And it kicks off with this huge choice, a real fork in the road that feels just as real today as it must have centuries ago. It basically comes down to this. Do you want an easy life, one that's full of pleasure? Or are you willing to take a much harder path to find something deeper? Something the manuscript calls true joy.
All right, so let's dig into these two roads of life. The manuscript is super direct about this fateful choice. It lays out two completely different paths with, well, very different endings.
So you've got this path of self-will. That's the wide, easy road, right? It's filled with pleasure, all the privileges, basically instant gratification. But, and this is a big but, this guide warns it comes with a massive hidden cost. It ends in a pit of anguish. Then you have the other road. It's rough, it's difficult, a journey of contrition and confession. It demands real sacrifice, but the destination? Totally different. We're talking true joy and eternal life.
And this is where the psychology gets really interesting. This medieval guide totally nails a timeless human flaw, procrastination. It talks about people who say, yeah, the world is pleasant, I'll enjoy it now, and I'll get right with God at the end of my life. They plan to switch paths someday. But the text is just ruthless here. It warns that so many of them fall into the pit sooner than they expect. They just plain run out of time.
Okay, so let's say you've chosen the hard road. What happens next? Well, the manuscript doesn't picture salvation as some free gift. Nope, it's a treasure, and it's a treasure you have to earn by getting through what is, for all intents and purposes, a spiritual obstacle course.
The whole journey is framed as a kind of siege. This treasure of God's love isn't just sitting there for the taking. It's locked away inside a super fortified castle. It's such a powerful metaphor, right? Spiritual fulfillment is defended, it's protected, and you, the traveler, have to figure out how to breach those walls.
And this whole spiritual siege is broken down into three main stages. First up, you have to jump over these two moats of worldly enjoyment. Then you've got to climb the three walls of virtue. And finally, to get that treasure, you have to literally break through the 4 bars of sin that are blocking your path.
And it gets super specific here, almost like a roadmap. The bars of sin are pretty much what you'd expect: pride, anger, envy, greed. But check out the walls of virtue. It's not just about, being a good person. It's about actively choosing the hard stuff, like preferring to be criticized over being honored, or giving up your own will for the sake of justice. This is a tough, active climb.
But here's a crucial point the manuscript makes. You can't get through this obstacle course by yourself. You absolutely need a guide. And this is where it gives a really sharp warning that not all spiritual guides are created equal, using these amazing parables to prove its point. So to show you the danger of a bad spiritual guide, the text introduces this character, a corrupt bishop, and then it compares him, piece by piece, to a butterfly. Now that might sound kind of poetic, but trust me, it is an absolutely devastating critique.
I mean, this is just a brilliant, detailed takedown. Every single part of the butterfly represents a specific spiritual flaw. So the two feelers, that's his duplicity. He's trying to hang on to worldly comfort with one while pretending to reach for eternal life with the other. And those beautiful, colorful wings, that's just a show, a public performance of holiness that's really just covering up all his inner corruption. It's an incredible metaphor for someone who looks perfect on the outside, but is completely hollow.
So the big takeaway here is that the butterfly bishop is a quiet hypocrite. He's a master of what you might call performative holiness. He looks the part, he says all the right things, but on the inside, he's leading both you and himself completely astray.
But the butterfly isn't the only threat out there. The manuscript contrasts this quiet hypocrite with a much louder kind of deceiver, the gadfly. This is your charismatic preacher, the one whose words sound amazing, but they're actually a sting. They're designed to make you admire him, not God. He's charming, he's eloquent, and he is leading his followers straight to damnation.
Okay, so after you've managed to navigate all the worldly temptations and the fake guides, the manuscript says the final, and maybe the toughest, battle is the one that happens inside your own head.
And the text actually has a name for this internal fight: useless thoughts. It's talking about those intrusive, unwanted, sometimes sinful thoughts that just pop into your head totally against your will. We all know what that's like, right?
and the manuscript offers some surprisingly modern advice on how to handle them.
And the advice it gives is honestly pre-psychological, even for today. It basically tells you are not your thoughts. The manuscript draws this really clear line: just having a bad thought isn't the sin. It says you won't be condemned for these intrusive thoughts you can't stop. The sin, it argues, only happens when you decide to take pleasure in them, when you consent to them. So the judgment isn't on the thought itself, but on how your will reacts to it.
And all of this builds to the manuscript's core argument about judgment. It's not about what you look like on the outside, or who seems the most holy, or even how you die. Real judgment, the text insists, is all about the true state of your heart and the real intention of your will, something only God can see.
So, after all that, the two roads, the castle, the bad guides, the manuscript brings it all home. It concludes that the real, the most important journey, it isn't out there in the world. It's the one we take through the landscape of our own will, our own intentions, and our own thoughts.
So in the end, this incredible manuscript leaves us with a question that feels just as urgent now as it must have centuries ago. It asks us to really think about that hard road, about that inner battle, and to decide for ourselves, what are we willing to overcome for a life that has real purpose and meaning? What's the true price, and are we willing to pay it?